Chapter 5, Police Management, Part 1. In this chapter in our textbook, there's a discussion of the various elements of management, including the management process. So your chapter begins with a discussion of the different steps in the management process. We often think when we think of management, we think of only maybe discipline or control, but there are obviously other features of management. And so what are these? When your book describes planning as one of the first steps, and so obviously this is plotting the future, setting goals, setting objectives, trying to figure out how you're going to actually achieve those. So a big part of management in any kind of business, not just policing, but any kind of profession, any kind of business is going to be a big part of management is planning. At least the good businesses and the good organizations are going to plan. The ones that don't do so well, the ones who just kind of ride the waves, don't do very well. So planning is a key element of management. Organizing. And so in your book, what organizing refers to is actually figuring out, once you have a plan, once you have objectives, how are you going to set up the organization? How are you going to set up resources, personnel? How are you going to arrange them so that you can actually accomplish those goals? So if you think of a military type operation, obviously planning is going to be essential. How are we going to actually carry out the attack? But then organizing it is just as important. We have the idea, we have the plan, we have the objective, but how many battalions are we going to commit to this particular phase of the attack? What forces will we bring to play? Are we going to need air support? Are we going to use the infantry? Are we going to use any armored divisions? What are we going to use? Do we need to coordinate it for the Army? Are we going to coordinate with the Navy? Are we going to have a sea bombardment as well, naval bombardment? So again, organizing is going to be an essential next step after planning to figure out, well, what particular personnel resources do we commit to these parts of the plan that we've come up with in the first step. Now once we have the plan, we have the resources committed, when we actually implement it, we need someone to lead it. So again, these different steps in the process can be done by a single manager, or conceivably, if we're talking again about a military operation, a large-scale military operation, these components are going to be done by many different people. And there are going to be different units that are assigned to each. Well, and the same with a police department. You could have different units and different personnel assigned to planning, organizing, leading each of those phases. Or if it's maybe a small enough plan, or it's a small enough organization, small enough police agency, maybe it's only the police chief that's doing this. So again, it doesn't have to be just one person. It could be many people that are carrying out the different phases. And they could each be carrying out a separate phase. Somebody could be working on planning and not be involved at all in organizing or leading. So leading, as you can see here, this is, according to your textbook, motivating others to perform the right task in the right way to contribute to the goals and the objectives of the organization. So how do we motivate people to actually perform the duties that we want them to perform so we can achieve our goals, our objectives? And then finally, controlling. This is maybe what we traditionally think of when we think of management, when we think of the bosses that we've had at our work, who are mainly concerned about, at least in our eyes, mainly concerned about making sure that we were doing the job right, disciplining us if we weren't, teaching us, hopefully, if we weren't, showing us how to do it better, those kinds of things. But controlling is going to be a part of it. Are we actually delivering the services as planned? Do we need to increase the quality? Are we delivering an inferior product or service because our personnel just aren't working hard enough, or they're doing the job incorrectly, or they just don't care, or whatever it may be? So controlling, this is basically maintaining the organization and the plan, the commitment to the plan once we've gotten it rolling. Some of the activities of leaders. Again, this kind of plays off those roles that we just discussed in the first slide. But the really good leaders, police leaders, are really any kind of leader, not just police leaders, but we're going to focus on police obviously in this class. We want that leader, whoever that leader is, we want that leader, that manager, to create a shared vision. Why? Because we want the organization moving towards the same objectives and goals. If they're all going in different directions, we're probably not going to be a very effective organization. So can we create a shared vision? What is this police department really about? Do we view ourselves mainly as crime fighters? Are we more service oriented? What do we actually see our job and our mission as? Is our mission um, to defend the rights of individuals, even if that prevents us from catching some criminals? So respect for private rights, individual rights, for the rule of law, is that part of our shared vision? Or do we have an organization that doesn't really care about that? We're willing to cut corners, we're willing to break the law to catch criminals if necessary. In that kind of organization, we're more likely to be efficient in fighting crime, but we're probably not going to be very well respected in the long run, because we're probably breeding contempt for the law if we're telling our officers to cut corners, violate people's rights, break the law in order to enforce the law. Somehow that just doesn't seem like doing the right thing, obviously, and we're going to talk about that when we cover ethics. And if that's part of your vision, it's probably a shared vision that's going to lead you down the wrong path. Do our leaders encourage people to commit to the organization? So in other words, do they view this organization as not just a source of pay so that they can enjoy the other things in life, or do they really feel that they're part of this organization? They love it. They want to see it grow. They want to see it improve. Obviously, good leaders are going to engender that kind of commitment. So whether you're talking about a sports team or you're talking about a job, do you have a commitment to the team, or are you just in it for yourself? And if you're just in it for yourself, again, the organization is going to have problems in the long run. Do the leaders care for their subordinates? So this doesn't mean that you're constantly holding their hands while they cry. It's knowing when to pat them on the back and when to kick them in the butt. And so, again, think about, as we go through these materials in this chapter, think about bosses or coaches who have been really instrumental in your life, who've really shown you how to be even better than you thought you could be, who really caused you to like your job, to like the sport, to like whatever you were doing. And so how did they care for you? And again, part of caring might be tough love. Not just saying that everything's rosy, everything's perfect, but when you mess up, to tell you you've messed up, but in a fair way. Somehow they've handled it so that you still would trust them and know that they had your best interest at heart. Are they driving and managing change? So are the leaders really leading? Are they encouraging change for the better? Are they constantly pushing the organization to get better and better? We've won one championship, let's win two. We've won two, let's win three. Let's never stop winning. Let's constantly be improving. So the successful coaches are going to do that. I'm a Steelers fan, so as much as it pains me to say it, but Bill Belichick doesn't rest. He's constantly looking for a way to win more championships for the Patriots. And so, as much as I hate to say that, because I hate the Patriots and probably more than any other team, and sorry to anybody from Boston who's listening, but you got to tip your hat to them. They have maintained excellence for a very long time, and Belichick, part of that is constantly saying we've got to be better and better. And I might as well go for it all and say the same thing about Tom Brady. As much as I would love to see him get sacked 50 times in a game, he is probably one of the hardest working quarterbacks ever. Constantly watching film, constantly working on the tiniest little things to get closer and closer to perfection. So the very best of the athletes will do that. Are we also doing that in our jobs? Are we driving and trying to promote positive change? Are our leaders doing that? Are they engaged in problem solving? Are they very good at this? Do they actually have a clear head and know how to solve problems when everything else is falling about them? When there's chaos all over the place and everybody seems to be losing their head, are they the ones that have the clear vision and the calmness and the coolness to actually solve the problem. A study was done to see what are some of the common leadership characteristics that we value. So I'm not going to say a whole lot about these because they're pretty much self-explanatory, but we're pretty much just going to list them. And so what were some of the things that people were looking for in their leaders? Well, we wanted them to be ethical. So, do they actually have a strong sense of what's right and what's wrong? We want to be able to trust them. So, this is a really strong characteristic in good leaders. Do we have confidence in them? Do we trust that they're going to make good decisions, and even when they make bad decisions, are they going to own up to it and take responsibility for it? Are they good role models? Are they always telling us, don't do as I do, or do as I say? Or do they actually live it too? Are they going to be the ones who are out there who are actually doing what's necessary and not just telling other people to do it? Do they live up to their own rules? Do they have legitimacy? Did they actually get the job legitimately, or did they earn it because they're the nephew or niece of the CEO? Are they related to the police chief, the mayor, or something like that? So do they have legitimacy for this particular job? Are they good at communication? Can they get their point across? Can they explain it? Do they actually sound sincere when they're talking to you? Do you believe them? Are they able to make decisions? So here again, we want that leader to make a decision. They're getting, as the old saying goes, that's why they're getting paid the big bucks. They have to make the decision. Right or wrong, they make the decision, they live by it. And if they're wrong, again, they learn from it and they take responsibility for it. Do they have effective thinking ability? We want smart leaders. We again, kind of like the problem solving. We want them to be able to think through a problem.